Hi everyone, Namaste. I'm Shraddha. I'm going to be talking about how Bharatanatyam improves brain development. I chose this topic because I'm very interested in biology and I'm very interested in Bharatanatyam. I was very fascinated to research and learn more about how the two are undoubtedly interlinked and connected. So, how does Bharatanatyam improve brain development? So, the first question we should ask ourselves, are we half brained? So now there are people who use their right side of the brain more than their left side. People like people who are very artistic, musical, emotional, creative, imaginative are people who use their right side of the brain. And people who use their left side of the brain more are very logical, very analytical, think very rationally, very good in maths, etc. But here in Bharatanatyam, we use both sides of the brain because we obviously have a lot of creative and artistic um, qualities in Bharatanatyam. You need to imagine a lot, be very creative to choreograph and everything. You need to have the music, you need to have a sense of music if you're going to learn Bharatanatyam, etc. And we also have a lot to do with talam and if you want to choreograph something, if you want to choreograph a jati or something, you need to have the maths, you need to know the maths, right? For like the talam and everything. So we use both sides of the brain. So before I go into the biology part, I will give a brief introduction. Dance is a form of exercise which has a natural impact on the body's physical health. However, the way it affects the brain is a great deal more fascinating. It has the ability to stimulate various parts of the brain and has even been shown to cause changes within brain structure over time. Deriving from this idea arises the notion that dance can be used in a clinical way to improve brain health, to either treat mentally ill patients or patients suffering from certain diseases that affect motor balance within their bodies. Bharatanatyam is a particularly interesting example to use as it is a form of Indian classical dance which are known for their therapeutic attributes and peaceful countenance. Although other dances and even other forms of exercises have proven to have an effect within the brain, Bharatanatyam has been shown to be more unique and impressive. Going to the biology part, as you all can see, the shaded red area of the brain is called the motor cortex. The motor cortex is an essential part of the brain which is stimulated through dance as it is the area of the brain responsible for our ability to learn and train new patterns of movement. It is understandable that the motor cortex is impacted as learning new movements and perfecting them through training is a key part to dance. At the same time, other cortical regions that interpret sensory information are also stimulated. Therefore, new patterns of movement cause unusual sensations in the brain, resulting in a more advanced body consciousness. This advancement within the brain can lead to a further developed brain. So, motor cortex is responsible for our motor skills, motoric control. So, motor skills is basically movement of the body. How we walk, we run, or stretching of the leg, stretching of the hand, just movement of the body is because of the motor cortex. Okay. Now the cerebellum's function, as you can all see, this is the cerebellum. So the cerebellum's function is to facilitate coordination and refinement of motor control. Okay, in this slide, we could all see that this is, it facilitates motoric control, right? Motor cortex. But cerebellum facilitates coordination and refinement of motoric control, meaning like more refined movements. This is where it can be associated with dance, specifically Bharatanatyam, because we do the complicated, movements and coordination and balance and much refined movements in Bharatanatyam, right? So this is where it can be associated, and so the cerebellum is stimulated by complex and unique movements that can be associated with Bharatanatyam, and it consequently is responsible for a person's balance and posture. Again, it can be associated with Bharatanatyam because we balance a lot. Our postures um, are very refined, and it's more complicated, I feel, than any other dance. Okay, so going next. Okay, so another part of the brain affected is the hippocampus, which is activated by the habituation process, which is where newly learned pattern is moved from the short-term memory to the long-term memory. The hippocampus is a small organ located with the brain's medial temporal lobe, right here. And here is the hippocampus. It forms an important part of the limbic system, and this is the part where it regulates emotions. I'll go to that later, but the hippocampus is associated mainly with memory, in particular long term memory. Actually, an interesting fact that I read in my research, a study was performed by a university. It looked at how dance psychologically affects people with the Parkinson's disease. Now, the Parkinson's disease is basically a brain disorder that leads to shaking, stiffness, and difficulty with walking, balance, coordination, basically motor skills. Now, the 120 people they took for experimenting this study had Parkinson's disease. And the people of the university split the 120 people into two groups of 60. The first group were requested to do dancing 3 times a week for a year, and likewise the other group to do stretching 3 times a week for a year. They discovered that the dancing group's hippocampus actually grew by 1% to 2% over the year, therefore helping to improve memory. This shows that dance does affect the hippocampus and therefore improves your ability to memorize and recall information, a trait which is helpful for learning long, complicated dance routines or lengthy amounts of theory. So, in addition, the pituitary gland, also known as the hypophysis, is stimulated by the vigorous body movements. The hypophysis is in control of the secretion of several hormones, including endorphin, adrenaline, noradrenaline, dopamine, and serotonin. These hormones are constantly being formed and dispersed throughout the body. The energetic dance movements can be physically exertive on the body, resulting in the increase of released hormones such as adrenaline. Dopamine is the happiness hormone, and that serotonin is the mood hormone. A release of these hormones would affect the mentality of the dancer, leading to a better performance. Continuing release of these happy hormones results in a smaller likelihood of mental illness and deterioration. Okay, so I feel that people who have mental illness often are they don't do any physical activity, especially learn dance or any physical activity. Um, that's why that leads to mental illness and everything. Because if we dance or do any physical activity, mainly do dance, then only then all the hormones will be secreted. The pituitary gland will secrete all these hormones, and only then these hormones will be formed and dispersed, and uh, our mental state would be more healthier and active if these hormones are secreted, right? So that way, if we learn dance, we have a much happier and healthier state of our mind, and uh, we are physically and mentally very active and healthy. Um, it's not, and people who don't do any physical activity are more prone to, mental illness and everything. I feel like if we learn dance, then all that will go away, and we'll be more happy. So, next. So, the limbic system. This is, I told you about the temporal lobe. This is the temporal lobe. And there's this one part of the temporal lobe where emotions were regulated. So, emotions like love, fear, anger, excitement are carried out by the limbic system, which is located in the temporal lobe. So the limbic system is located here, and emotions like these are uh, carried out by the limbic system. While the limbic system is made up of multiple parts of the brain, the center of emotional processing is amygdala. As you can all see here, this is amygdala, and this is the center of emotional processing. So this is very important for dance because we express a lot in dance. We do a lot of expressions. So in order to do those expressions, we need to feel all these emotions, right? So if you want to show love, you need to feel it. If you want to show fear, you need to actually be scared and like feel the fear and likewise anger and excitement, etc. So also I feel like if we are in touch with our emotions, we are our mental health is like it's more healthy and active if we are in touch with our emotions. Because if we were not, then it won't be healthy at all. We need to be in touch with our emotions, right? So that way, again, it is very important. So a surprising revelation is that in the process of dancing, the frontal lobe takes a break. So what I mean by takes a break is that the frontal lobe is the part of our brain responsible for thinking. This is the frontal lobe. Huh. So it is responsible for thinking. Therefore, this implies that while dancing, other parts of the brain become more active, resulting in the frontal lobe taking a break. This is fascinating for me as it indicates that when a dancer is purely dancing, they're not directly thinking about the steps, but their body and their mind remembers instinctively for them. This suggests a unique insight into how the brain functions. And also, when the frontal lobe takes a break, us dancers rely on our muscle memory. So this has happened to me a lot. I'm sure many dancers also have experienced this. When I'm dancing, like when I'm doing an adavu, I I tend to just I don't think at all, and obviously when I don't think, I'm not thinking about what I'm doing, and but still I instinctively move my hand in the required how the step is supposed to be. Like I move my hand exactly where I'm supposed to put it, and it's just an instinct. So that is, we rely on our muscle memory. So that was very fascinating for me because that's happened to me. I actually rely a lot on my muscle memory because I've practiced the other was so much that without thinking, I'm able to move exactly how the other was supposed to be. So this is very interesting for me, and so I want to conclude by saying that it is clear that dance has a significant impact on the brain. The two are undoubtedly interlinked. Dance has always shown physical benefits on the body. However, more recent research appears to show the mental benefits for partaking in this art form. Dance has been shown to stimulate various regions of the brain, which has had an essential effect on how dancers perform and how they function in everyday life. Further research has depicted how dance can be used as a therapeutic method to improve brain health. So, yeah, this is the end of my presentation. Thank you.